President Trump hitting back at Ukrainian President Zelenskyy just a short time ago on President Zelenskyy's comments in London yesterday during a briefing where he said, quote, "An agreement to end the war is still very, very far away, and no one has started all these steps yet." President Trump responded to Zelenskyy by saying, quote, "This is the worst statement that could have been made by Zelenskyy, and America will not put up with it for much longer. It is what I was saying. This guy doesn't want there to be peace as long as he has America's backing and Europe." In the meeting they had with Zelenskyy, stated flatly that they cannot do the job without the U.S. Probably not a great statement to have been made in terms of show of strength against Russia. What are they thinking? The Democrats aren't outraged by President Zelenskyy. They're mad at President Trump.
If Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and Putin believe that they're going to intimidate and bully and threaten President Zelenskyy to join the club of corrupt and unprincipled leaders, they will literally need to wait until hell freezes over twice, because this is a man who is committed to the survival of his country.
The propaganda is what's coming out of J.D. Vance's mouth, and it's Russian propaganda.
I saw the meeting as a despicable display of bullying by the president.
It was Vice President Vance, particularly, who was on the offense, who was berating President Zelenskyy.
It is absolutely shameful what is happening right now. The White House has become an arm of the Kremlin.
I just have never felt such shame about American policy before, and I don't know how our allies trust us after this.
Putin and his cronies are probably popping champagne bottles right now.
We have someone that is occupying the White House, and as far as I'm concerned, he is an enemy to the United States.
On the other hand, the rational one, Secretary of State Marco Rubio is standing up for President Trump and calling out Democrats for having a double standard when it comes to peace talks. Watch.
Shouldn't we all be happy that we have a president who's trying to stop wars and prevent them instead of start them? And I just don't get it. I really don't, other than the fact that it's Donald J. Trump. If this was a Democrat that was doing this, everyone would be saying, well, he's on his way to the Nobel Peace Prize. This is absurd. We are trying to end a war. You cannot end a war unless both sides come to the table, starting with the Russians. If there are no negotiations, what is the alternative? Another 4 years of war, another 3 years of war, in which the United States and Europe continues to pour billions of dollars into a war in Ukraine? Is that the alternative?
Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Emily Campagno here with my co-hosts, Kayleigh McEnany and Harris Faulkner. And also joining us today, Cheryl Casoni, Fox Business anchor and host of American Dream Home on Fox Business, and the Larry Kudlow, host of Kudlow on Fox Business. Now, Kayleigh, I want to talk to you about the Democrat reaction and perhaps more chronologically accurate, the Democrat carpet that was laid out for President Zelenskyy, because the reality is the impact on him, the influence on him, and his preparation was far different and did not begin with the Oval Office, what we saw on camera. In fact, as we saw earlier, Democrat Chris Murphy came out and said, oh, we had a meeting beforehand, posting a photo on X and saying, and I told him not to accept a peace deal and the mineral deal. Your thoughts?
Yeah, he met with several lawmakers, to your exact point. And one thing is clear. I mean, Zelenskyy came in with a strategy. And it's confounding why your strategy would be bite the hand that feeds me. And that sounds harsh, but make no mistake, the U.S. has fed Zelenskyy in Ukraine to the tune of $183 billion. Something that I think was missed by a lot of folks is this. The dispute that we saw play out in dramatic, explosive fashion here on Outnumbered did not take place until 43 minutes into the meeting. What happened in the preceding 43 minutes? It's an important question. Phil Wegman of Real Clear Politics did an analysis of this, looked at the transcript. And if you read the transcript, you find Zelenskyy continually pushing the buttons of the U.S. delegation. He was bringing up the security guarantee, which President Trump has said explicitly we're not going to put in there as the United States of America. Then he contradicted Trump at several times, trying to correct him. And then Trump said, you know, let's negotiate first. Let's find this peace deal. Then we can talk about security. And Zelenskyy said, well, that will not work. So the 43 minutes before were Zelenskyy pushing the buttons of the United States. And then it was Zelenskyy who instigated it, took this to a new plateau when he looked at J.D. Vance and said, well, tell me what you mean by diplomacy in a rather hostile fashion. That was his strategy. It did not work. And when you're in the face of U.S. public polling that shows Pew right now, do you have confidence in Zelenskyy? Well, 72% said yes in 2022. 48% say yes now. 78% tell Ipsos they want a peace deal. Where do you think those numbers are today in the face of Zelensky's intransigency?
Great question.
I imagine they are much harsher.
Larry, the whole point is those are arguing, these critics of Trump. So what are you saying? Are you confusing peace with the rote bankrolling and an inability to accept any type of deal whatsoever, a unilateral position? That's not what makes peace.
As Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said Friday night, this is the third time that Zelensky has rejected the minerals infrastructure mining deal. Now, let me just pause on this because it's such an important point. In that deal, American companies would come, putting boots on the ground to start the mining and excavation of the rare earth minerals and gold and silver and whatever. This sets up a tripwire so that if the Russians start rolling tanks into these mineral excavations or start bombing them, then they would know that all bloody hell will break loose with the United States and with Donald Trump, who is not Joe Biden. He's a very strong leader. So Zelensky, however, would not accept the minerals deal because he keeps denying the importance for security. This is a major step to secure Ukraine. It puts the United States into Ukraine. It puts our business, again, private sector boots on the ground. You can bet they'll have security forces. So, coming back to what Kayleigh says, I think is right on target. Democrats teed him up to reject essentially all the peace offers here. Zelensky knows full well. Look, he met with Bessent in Kyiv. Bessent said that he was rude and obnoxious to him in those meetings.
Yeah.
He was briefed by White House people before this Oval Office meeting. He knew exactly what was coming, but he was also briefed, you're exactly right, by guys like Chris Murphy, who's a left-wing troublemaker from Connecticut, and he had his left-wing talking points. He doesn't want peace. I don't know what he wants because he's not going to defeat Russia, okay? And the war will go on forever, and hundreds of thousands and millions of people will be killed or they will be injured. But he's a bad actor here. He's a very bad actor. And don't forget, Lindsey Graham basically called for his resignation. Lindsey Graham's the biggest supporter of the Ukraine. So I think this was a fatal mistake. Europe will not bail him out, and Trump has got to stay with his gun. The minerals deal is the key, okay? You sign that, you bring the boots on the ground, that's huge. It's a tripwire. If not, then who knows what's going to happen.
And as President Trump said on Friday, sure, the reality is our president said, I don't want an advantage, I want peace. And for some reason, it seems that the openness to using the military should not be confused with a dedication to peace. The warmonger was President Biden.
Trump knows, he's a great negotiator. At this point, he has to be an honest broker, but
he has been. Zelensky has not been.
That's correct.
I mean, otherwise we wouldn't have been caught off guard. Otherwise, no one in that meeting would have been caught off guard by what he was saying. Look, this isn't the first time. 2022, Joe Biden knew he had a problem. He knew he couldn't deal with this person. NBC was reporting Biden lost temper with Zelensky in June phone call when Ukrainian leader asked for more aid. Biden wanted an apology and he couldn't get it then. Biden wanted gratitude and he couldn't get it in. You fast forward to last Friday, it looked just like this meeting. Now, we didn't get to see that because that was reported on and it wasn't open to the public. We actually got transparency. We know who Trump is dealing with now. Though the way that I have read what Trump has written in Art of the Deal and other things he said is that now it's going to cost Zelensky something. So the question is, does the American negotiator go back in and say, it's not going to be 300, whatever it was, it's going to be 400, 500 trillion. It's going to be, or a million.
Keith Kellogg, who's a very smart fella and is the principal negotiator at this point, he's going to try, I think, he will try to work some diplomatic magic on Zelensky and try to turn this whole thing back, okay? Because otherwise, we're not going to finance this endlessly. We're not going to keep selling arms to Ukraine endlessly.
Does Trump get the public apology that he asked for a couple of hours ago?
I think that's the first step. Kellogg has to get the public apology, then they sign the minerals deal, and then we can begin the process of making peace. If Zelensky holds out from that, it's almost unimaginable because it means the fighting and the killing is going to go on forever.
We need to get Cheryl in here. Yes.
Real quick, can I add to what Larry's talking? You're absolutely right about the minerals deal. That is the security agreement.
Yes.
Is the minerals deal,
Yes.
1,000%.
The tripwire.
Thank you.
The tripwire.
Thank you. The other issue is, if you looked at European defense stocks today, Larry, they jumped over 10%, 15%, because the Europeans, with Zelensky there, said, okay, we're willing to actually beef up our defenses. You know, Trump could actually win, if you think about it, when this is all said and done, because this forced Europe to finally step up to the plate, which they have not with spending. As you know, they are not. Only half of NATO is putting in up to 2% of GDP, which is the requirement. It's ridiculous.
I appreciate the
This is a
point
good
very
thing.
much. I appreciate your point very much. Me, I'm going to give it a big maybe.
All right, on that note,
Europe, maybe.
All right, here's what's not a maybe. Tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern, Sean Hannity sits down for an exclusive interview with Vice President J.D. Vance, his first since that fiery exchange with Ukrainian President Zelensky. Now, that's at 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on Fox News.